I think the Georgia charges are probably more damning if he's convicted of.
All right, so how do you guys want to get wrecked on this? Let's start with.
All right, guys, I appreciate that. All right, so let's get on to the second question. So I have a quote here. So we could very well have a sitting president under felony indictments and ultimately a criminal trial, Trump said during a campaign rally in Reno, Nevada, November 5th in 2016. It would grind government to a halt. Trump is facing a combined 91 charges across 4 criminal trials. If Trump is successful in his presidential bid, would this impact his ability to focus on national and international concerns? Further, should Trump be able to actually halt the federal investigations against him and or pardon himself? So it went Jeb. Let's go with Rob first then.
Okay. So there's a lot to say on this. I'll try to keep it brief. First, the point of, let me get this right. Will it impact his ability to focus? Yes and no. I know that sounds like a stupid answer. Yes, because they'll keep harping on this, but no, because they would have found something anyways. You know what hampered his ability the first time? The illegal spying and Russiagate investigation that was all bullshit. They will find something, whether it's these trials or something. They will use lawfare and use the weaponization of the intel agencies to go after Trump, and it will impact his agenda. That's absolutely true. So these cases could be part of it. Should be allowed to shut down investigations such as pardoning? Of course, you can't get rid of pardon power uniquely because for the first time in history they decided to charge Trump. You can't do that, and so that would be even more devastating and going against norms. The greater question that I hope we spend time doing here is talking about the corruption of these investigations themselves. Now I'm going to do something to try to narrow the focus of this. I'm going to implore Jeb and Connor to focus on it in this way, and you can disagree with me if you want. If any of these cases are illegitimate, it shows a gross weaponization of the government, which is a bigger threat than any of the things Trump is accused of. For example, if you're like, well, I think Trump did mishandle classified documents, so I'm okay with charging him, but the other 3 are bullshit. Those other 3 being bullshit and the weaponization and interfering in our elections is a far greater crime than Trump potentially mishandling classified information. And so I think that all we have to do is prove that any of these cases for the terms of this debate are bullshit so that you can see that what the group is behind Biden, as Connor put, the deep state or these institutions that are behind Biden that are actually running the show, as we've all agreed, what they're doing is far more corrupt and harmful to the country than any of the things that they're alleging that Trump has done.
Got it. We'll go actually EOD next because whatever.
I don't understand why. I mean, okay,
because you guys are like the team.
Rob, so I think
we're going most attractive to least. So.
Doing team.
There we go.
He's doing teams.
Okay. So Rob's better looking guy. You do have a better looking beard than I do. I'll tell you that. All right. What am I going to say? Is will the indictments distract Trump? I mean, here's the thing. Here's the thing that happened earlier today. Is the Supreme Court's hearing on presidential immunity. With regard to Trump, with regard to all presidents, past and present, and in the future, and I think this is going to be one of the most momentous rulings in the history of our country. Actually, this is going to either uphold the precedent that the president does generally have immunity when it comes to his time in office and his official proceedings and his official fucking businesses, or he doesn't. And then if the Supreme Court comes down and it says that the president lacks this immunity, then it really puts into jeopardy a long history of our system of jurisprudence kind of turning a blind eye to whatever happens while the president is in office. Turning a blind eye to Obama, drone bombing an American citizen in the sandbox simply because he was in the sandbox and he was tacitly associated with terrorists. To President Bush starting a war without Congress's approval. To Trump, fucking bombing Syria without congressional approval. Yada yada yada. Going down the line, okay. When it comes to the idea that they're going to uphold presidential immunity, I think that's going to have huge implications for these quote-unquote 91 indictments, which are primarily witch hunts over stupid fucking garbage. One of the big things that I brought up earlier was the Her report and the classified documents bullshit. It's plain as day that there's an absolute double standard in the DOJ when they look at Joe Biden and they say, yes, we found wrongdoing. Yes, this goes back to the 70s. Yes, Joe Biden is absolutely fucking guilty of all these things. But you know what? A jury's probably not going to convict him because he's old and he's senile, and they're going to be sympathetic to his plight and his plot as an elderly, sympathetic man. In other words, he's not competent enough to stand trial, but he is competent enough to lead our country. I'm sorry, that doesn't fucking track. The shit doesn't make any sense. So, it's just a disgusting thing. It really is, to sit here and think about what's happening to Trump. The fact that 90% of it is bullshit. Okay, it's not illegal to pay hush money to somebody to shut them the fuck up. It's not illegal to find loopholes in your taxes, and it's not illegal for a president to walk out of the White House with fucking classified documents. Every single president prior to Trump has done this. Suddenly, when he does it, it's the fucking worst thing that's ever happened in the history of our fucking country. Not to mention the fact that, mind you, Biden's documents he forgot about because he's fucking senile. They were in a fucking dilapidated cardboard box in his fucking garage, okay, and then Trump actually had a skiff. So when you look at this stuff, and a skiff that was certified by like the National Security Agency and shit, you know what I'm saying, or the FBI or somebody along those lines. God, there's so many. We need to get rid of a few. Anyway, what's happening to Trump is a gross miscarriage of justice. I think the Supreme Court ruling that's coming down is going to absolutely fucking support that, and then most of these indictments are probably going to go away because of that. In addition to that, yes, the president has the ability to pardon himself. I don't think there's any precedent or any legal lees that you can spin to say that doesn't exist. And is it expressly spelled out somewhere in the Constitution? No, but the president does have the sole authority to pardon. Of course, why wouldn't he be able to pardon himself? And of course, that is the premise behind presidential immunity in the first place, which is why presidents have never had to deal with this level of fucking persecution or prosecution in the history of our entire fucking nation. So, there you go.
Mr. Connor?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it short and sweet. Yes, it's going to give him a headache. Yes, he should maintain the ability to maintain the pardon. I don't think screwing over Trump is worth screwing over the entire system of governance. I'm a Republican, meaning I care about the republic and the rule of law and the balance of power between different people. I wouldn't change this rule just because Trump might use it in a spicy way. As far as the actually just responding a little bit, paying off your mistress with campaign election funds is illegal, should be illegal, and I'm old enough to fucking remember when Bill Clinton getting a fucking blowjob from a secretary and then lying about it was something that Republicans would argue disqualified him for fucking office. Now we got a motherfucker. He's got 3 mistresses banging out fucking porn actresses while his wife is pregnant, cheating on his fucking wife. And it's like, no big deal. So for me, it's like, we either do have a standard of conduct that we expect out of our leaders that we are going to hold people to, or we don't. At which point this is all bullshit and theater. So basically, the reason why I'm perfectly okay with the legal process going forward, despite it being in New York, that's kind of sketchy. New York might as well be California. But the reason why I'm okay with this in general is because, no, due process of laws. He's not any bigger than anybody fucking else.
Mr. Jeb?
Yeah, so there's a lot to cover. So with what Rob said, no. I mean, I think maybe not. Maybe I agree with what Rob said, but I just don't agree with the premise under which he's framing it. These cases where, like, if they're illegitimate, basically kind of saying if Trump is found not guilty, then they are illegitimate. I don't know if that's what he was saying, but if that is, I disagree with it. If he's saying that he's kind of assuming that I think any of these cases are illegitimate, probably not. I think the New York one might be a little aggressively litigious, but as far as the letter of the law, every single one of them is legitimate. That is why they were found to have standing, and I believe in the American justice system. It's a fucking good one. And we, time and time again, are seeing, as evidence starts to unfold and we see these indictments, we're like, oh, fuck. Even me, who originally was like, maybe these are pushing a little too hard. Every time an indictment comes out, every time they reveal some evidence, I'm like, oh, fuck. Trump is fucked. Specifically in Georgia and in the federal cases for, I think, in Florida. So my issue here is with what EOD said, generally being that Trump had a skiff, and so that makes it okay. The issue is he had fucking classified documents in his guest bathroom. don't think that was the skiff we're referring to. So if Trump did have a skiff and he just couldn't pull himself to draw those boxes from the potty to the skiff, okay. He also admitted on verbal recording, again, that he didn't declassify those documents, which his main legal defense is that he thought he had de facto classified those documents. And again, the big major difference was when it was requested for him to return those documents, he didn't. He stalled. He has written instructions to his staffers to move and hide those documents to make it harder for them to be retrieved. Whereas, again, the EOD continues, even though I've already called him out on this, but it's because he didn't read it. He really might believe what he's saying. Her report does not show that Biden was guilty. It acknowledges that guilt implies intent and that he did not meet that standard of intent time after time after time. And Donald Trump isn't being convicted for taking home documents like any other president did. He's being convicted for not returning them. And then he has the legal defense or not being convicted, being charged for not returning them. And his defense against that is I declassified them on the way out because simply by moving them, I declassified them. But we have an audio recording of him admitting that's not the case, which again, Rob Noor brought up that Biden said something kind of similar, which he really kind of didn't. But even if he did, Biden's main defense isn't that he thought he had declassified them. Biden's main defense was that he obviously didn't intend to flout the law because these documents were found later on in the same way that they have with previous presidents that didn't get prosecuted because they hadn't used them. It was stored next to a bunch of non-governmental documents and beat up boxes in his garage. Obviously, most of them hadn't been touched. And a lot of them, from the time he was vice president, were his personal notebooks, his personal handwritten memos. So her report hammers this home that it's very clear that he may not have realized that these were classified documents because they contain classified information because they were his own handwritten notes. So in terms of whether Trump will be able to pardon himself, that's the last and the easiest thing. He would only be able to pardon himself for the federal charge. As far as the Georgia case, which is equally strong, I think, maybe not equally strong after that audio recording, but similarly strong, he won't be able to pardon himself for that. And I think Trump, when he is convicted of some of these crimes, might be disqualified for office. I think this immunity case is important, not like EOD is saying. This Supreme Court case is not about whether the president has blanket immunity for issues involving his official functions as a president. It is, where does the line of official functions as president end? And can you just say, because I was president when I did this, it was an official function as president? That's what this case is about. And so it's not that big of a deal. If he gets off based on it, it's not a great precedent. If he is not allowed immunity, I think that's probably the proper ruling because it didn't seem like he wasn't acting as president. He was the president acting as a fucking dickhead trying to incite a riot at the Capitol.
I have a question for you guys before I let you guys yell at each
peacefully
other.
go and patriotically make your voices heard is inciting a riot.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I said
Hold on. Yeah, you know what? Fuck it. You guys go. I don't actually give a shit. I was actually
Okay.
One thing I was going to ask. The one thing I was going to ask is you guys keep saying he's allowed to pardon himself. If he's allowed to pardon himself, I thought it was unwritten territory if he could or could not do that, and that was actually the main reason why Nixon ended up quitting, so that his vice president can pardon himself.
No, you could. It was more political. He knew he would have been impeached. So you could pardon yourself from a crime, but impeachment and being convicted of the impeachment would still remove you from office. Nixon could have pardoned himself. He could have. Just he would have been impeached. That's so he stepped down because he knew that.
Yeah,
because he had a sense of honor that he didn't want to fuck up.
Yeah, I'm like, but
I don't know how contested it is that he can pardon himself, but for me, it doesn't totally matter because I think the Georgia charges are probably more damning if he's convicted of.
All right, so how do you guys want to get wrecked on this? Let's start with what Connor said. We'll start with the Bragg case, right? Now, I contend that if any of these cases are blatantly illegitimate, it shows more election interference and is more serious than anything Trump was accused of. That's just my statement on it. So Connor made the comment. He said, quote, "Paying off your mistress with campaign funds is illegal." You're standing by that, Connor?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not
Otherwise,
why he's
what
being
the
charged. He's being charged for the opposite reason. He's being charged because he didn't use campaign funds. He's being charged because
he moved it through his fucking
No.
lawyer? That's your defense?
No, that's exactly why he's being charged. He's being charged because the argument they made was he used his lawyer paid. He didn't even know about it. His lawyer paid, and then he reimbursed his lawyer. And the argument they're making is that's a campaign contribution. That the reason for the NDA was to advance his campaign, therefore it has to be disclosed as a campaign expenditure. And what you've done is what I've said would be done from the get-go. The mere fact that Trump did something that almost every multimillionaire does, which is have someone sign an NDA, he was damned if he did and damned if he didn't. If he used campaign funds, they would have charged him, and people like you would say, you can't use campaign funds to pay off an NDA like that. You can't do it. If he didn't use campaign funds, people like you would say, you have to charge him because he didn't write down that he used campaign funds. So what you've effectively proven by your misunderstanding of this case is that Trump was fucked either way. And it's not as serious as you're saying.
Do you know how he could have avoided being fucked?
Go ahead.
By not cheating on his pregnant wife with a porn actress.
So,
Oh,
what's
great.
that have
Thanks
to
for
do?
pointing that
Right.
out.
So, like, I get the deflection to his immorality or him being a bad person. I'm completely with you, by the way. I think infidelity is a very serious thing. I'm happily married, and I don't think it's cool when anyone cheats. I don't even like people having multiple partners before they're in a committed relationship, but that's my preference. Irrelevant to the question of legality and putting your thumb on the scale. Now they're charging this case, which is brought by a prosecutor who admitted he was running on the promise of taking down Donald Trump, who the feds, the Federal Election Commission, decided not to bring the case. The statute of limitations had ran out, and they decided, well, we're going to say it's a federal crime, so we're going to extend it to a felony so the statute of limitations don't apply, and then go after him for this. Meanwhile, just one more cherry on top of this shit sandwich is that Hillary Clinton's team actually 100% did in the most clear-cut way what Trump's accused of. She actually did get campaign stuff. She paid for the Steele dossier with campaign funds and lied about it and did not write down that campaign disclosure. Was she charged with felonies? No, she was asked to pay a small fine. The exact same crime. The only difference is I could make a compelling case to you that there is reason that someone would want an NDA signed outside of their campaign. Like you didn't want your wife to know you cheated on her, or you didn't want your business to be harmed. But Hillary can't make that case. What Hillary did was 100% clear-cut violation of the law, and the justice system decided to treat her 100% differently than Trump. That alone shows the election interference and is more serious than any allegation. Or doesn't the law matter when it comes to that? The equality of application of the law doesn't matter. All that matters is Trump banged a hooker, so let's go. Or, I'm sorry, Stormy, porn star. So let's go.
Pornographic actress.
Yeah,
Let's
sorry.
get it
Yeah.
accurate. So, all right, hold up. So here's the thing. Like, normally, if you were arguing with a lefty or a center lefty or whatever, then what you would get is you would get a 4-hour passionate defense about how the Bidens and the Clintons didn't do nothing and they don't deserve any kind of scrutiny whatsoever. But because you're talking to me, when you ask me, like, well, isn't it fucked up that Hillary Clinton's getting a pass and Trump isn't? The answer is yes. And my further answer is fuck them both to the longest extent of the law. Now, I know your counter proposal is going to be, well, that's not going to happen. Right. Well, for me, we're making an argument here. We're either saying we get one for doing something fucking wrong, which we can at least agree moral, if not legal, or we just let them both slide because this is the way that it is and we're trying to get a consistent standard. And we should actually reduce consistent standards in our society. Yeah, and by the way,
precedent too, because the Hillary
last point. This is the kind of social degradation of norms and concepts of honor and legality that I think is a snowflake in the avalanche that is our degrading culture.
Yeah, and so Hillary set a terrible precedent. I think we'd all agree with that. The beautiful thing is, we as conservatives, if that is what everyone here claims to be, we have a chance right now to make it not precedent by not doing the same thing. Once both parties in our evil binary system decide that we're going to let this shit slide and we're not even going to stand against our own guys all in the same way, that's how it becomes precedent. If we score Trump on this, if we allow Trump to meet the consequences of his own actions, maybe not in the New York case, but definitely in Georgia and the federal charges, we get way more credibility when we're trying to go after Democrats for the same thing. Or we say, fuck it, Trump, who we all agree, I think now at this point, was worse than the candidates he ran against in the primary. We're going to protect him? We're going to sack you. Okay, I mean, you pretended that Vivek was better than Trump, even though he was proto-Trump. But we're going to save...
He is better than
for
Trump.
the sake of,
Vivek actually came out and said we're going to get rid of the 3 other agencies.
For the sake of
Would you
Trump,
propose that you
are we going to
actually
give up our
appreciate?
credibility to ever prosecute a Democrat for the same things?
Credibility. That's hilarious. Like, I love this argument so much. Now, first off, Jeb Tan's full of shit, because if there was weaponization, for example, say that Nikki Haley was the nominee, and say that an attorney general came and said, we're going to get Nikki Haley. I'm running on the promise to bring down Nikki Haley. And then the big charge they went after Nikki Haley was she spent $5,000 over her campaign getting her hair done, but she didn't put it down as a campaign contribution. She didn't put it. Please.
I'm talking
Yeah,
about
that's not even a good analogy.
It is a good analogy because the
documents and refusal to return them.
please, what you're doing is
Shut the fuck up. Let him go, dude.
So here's what happened. We're talking.
I don't have to let someone misframe my argument.
No, I'm not misframing it. If you're okay, so then Jeb's argument is, oh no, Rob, I'm completely deflecting from this shit case because I can't defend it. I'm talking about the classified. We'll get to the classified document. Jeb, we'll get to the classified documents case. So there you have it. Jeb can't argue the double standard here. He can't, right? The argument he seemed to be making, and I'm sorry that if I misapplied it because, he's just a fucking shill and can't argue his case successfully. It seemed to me what he was saying was, well, just because what Hillary did was a bad precedent with her campaign finance stuff doesn't mean that we should let Trump go. And this time we should go after Trump, and then we'd be able to go after someone like Hillary in the future. That's what I thought he was saying. And then he just deflected there again to, no, I'm talking about the classified document cases. So the exact analogy that I was using is...
there's 3 different cases, unfortunately.
Well, and we could go through each of the cases if you like. I have no problem. We could stay here till 3 a.m. if you guys want. That's no problem. We just started with the easiest in the first one that was mentioned and the one that's in the news now, and we could prove that it's shit. So the reason that I use the hairdressing analogy is this.
Why is it shit?
Prove that he might not be found guilty, but not that it's illegitimate. It was found to have standing.
No, it's not it's not legitimate. Like, so if you listen to like congressional law scholar Jonathan Turley, who laughs at this, and many other law scholars that laughs, it's not legitimate for the following reasons. One, because it was brought by someone who it was outside the jurisdiction. When the feds looked at this, they didn't think there was a crime. But this guy who ran on the promise of bringing down Donald Trump in a state is now putting his thumb on the national election by expanding the statute of limitations in a way that has literally never been done. That's one why it's illegitimate. Second, it's because it rests on a theory that what we consider campaign contributions or campaign expenditures, to be more accurate. And the way that that theory has usually been implied are things that you would pay for that were exclusively for the campaign. So, for example, yard signs. If I'm getting yard signs that says Rob Knorr for school board, I'm never going to get those signs unless I'm running for school board. Therefore, that would reasonably be a campaign expenditure. Now, laws exist because what we don't want to have happen is Rob to get a bunch of campaign donations, then go buy a sweet Corvette and say, oh, but it's for the campaign. Look how cool I look driving around in it. I was campaigning. They would say no.
I like paying off your whore. Yeah.
Right. That's right, Connor. That's exactly the point. So the standard that was usually used is you don't have to claim something as a campaign expenditure if it's something that you could reasonably purchase outside the scope of you running for an election. So the question is, would a billionaire who allegedly cheated on his wife have reason to have an NDA signed if it was outside the scope of him running for an election? Yes, I bet he's had NDAs signed before he was ever in politics. So then the reason that I use the hairdress analogy is the theory that Bragg is using would say anything. We're now changing what a campaign expenditure is. A campaign expenditure is now anything that remotely could help you on the campaign must be qualified as a campaign expenditure. Therefore, if you buy a new suit and then you go to a campaign rally...
I have a question. Sorry. I'll let you finish.
No, therefore, if you get a new suit and you go to a campaign rally, an overzealous prosecutor could say, wait a minute, I didn't see that suit expenditure listed on your campaign expenditures. And they could charge them and say, you bought that suit for the campaign and you got your hair done for the campaign. You got services done to help you in the campaign. That's why I made the analogy. And you were actually incorrect, Connor, in your assessment that the law said that he couldn't use this money. It's actually the exact opposite. It's actually Bragg saying the fact that he didn't write it, he used the money and didn't write it down as a campaign expenditure. That's the problem.
So hold on. You're saying words, but I'm not fully understanding them. So hold on. So let's walk through this.
Okay.
Are you saying that the paying off of the mistress should not be reasonably perceived to be a campaign expenditure.
I'm saying that the standard that was employed before was, even if something could be beneficial for a campaign, the question that must be asked is, could it be beneficial and could someone pursue that outside the scope of running a campaign? It is entirely
I'm asking
plausible.
you, Rob Knorr, what do you think the legal experts and your personal opinion are?
My
Should
friend,
that is that a campaign expenditure or no?
I would say no.
Okay, I disagree.
Okay, well, so that's why the case is ridiculous for the reasons I outlined. Then to go further,
Well,
right?
hold on. Can you tell me why paying off your mistress while you're running for public election is not campaign related? Can you tell me why?
Because it relates to your personal life.
The
This is a
standard
stupid
wasn't
question.
campaign related.
People's personal lives are part of their public campaigns
Okay,
all the fucking
Connor,
time.
I could turn the question to you. Can you explain to me why, when I ran for Congress and I bought a new suit, why that's not campaign related?
Hold on. You're saying you bought a new suit.
Correct. I was running for office. I
Why
bought a
is
new
that
suit.
not campaign related?
Correct.
I think if you use it on the campaign trail, it is campaign related.
Right. So that would mean that almost every single person that's ever ran for office is guilty now. Because if they bought a new suit, if they got their hair done, and they didn't write it down as a campaign expenditure, even after the statute of limitations, an overzealous prosecutor in a state could say, 6 years ago, you got your hair done to the tune of $2,000 so that you could go to a campaign event, and you didn't write it down as a campaign expenditure. Therefore, we think that's a felony. And the problem I have, to get to the biggest point on this, is the absurd idea that this NDA and that we have to, crimes are crimes, and it's a small snowflake in an avalanche. You're right, it is a snowflake in an avalanche, and the avalanche is the unequal application of the law. We're literally talking about prosecutors running on the promise of getting Trump, using a legal theory that has never been used for, in a crime that is laughable in the first place. Meanwhile, we have evidence that his very opponent in that same election committed the crime far more seriously than him. And so you say, well, we need to stop this.
Who's the person who committed the crime? Your passion is outweighing my understanding.
Hillary Clinton, what she did was not even arguably
The Steele dossier.
Correct.
Okay.
Which she
Okay.
lied for over a year.
My statement to that was fuck them both. That was my statement.
But okay, so let's use an analogy. Let's say we're in the Jim Crow South and there's a racist police department. And that racist, you witness this police department, they only pull over black people. You watch white people driving 70 mile an hour, they free pass. But a black guy goes 1 mile an hour over, they pull him over, right? And you see this over and over. And the evidence is clear as day. Racist police department from the top down, only targeting black people. The argument that you're effectively making is, when someone like me comes and goes, there's a huge problem here. This police force is intentionally only targeting people of color, and when people that are white commit the crime in more serious ways, they're let off the hook. Your argument would be, but we have to start somewhere, so arrest that black man. We don't have time to talk about...
hell yeah. I'll bite the bullet.
bullshit.
No, hold on. I'll bite the... You have gone on several long, passionate rants so far. I would like the opportunity to respond to why I would passionately, happily bite the fucking bullet on this shit, right? Let's use another analogy. Let's say shoplifting. A fucking rich person comes in and they're shoplifting from a store. It's fucking Winona Ryder or some shit. And then 2 seconds later, a poor black lady fucking comes and shoplifts the same shit so she can sell it so she can feed her kids. Yeah, you're goddamn right. I'm gonna say, yeah, punish the fucking shoplifting from the second person. Because the whole reason is, I'm not going to argue to degrade a fucking standard. I'm going to argue to increase the fucking standard. 100%. And on top of that, if you keep arguing to degrade the standards constantly in order for the game to be fair, then what is going to fucking happen is you will no longer have standards, which is what we are increasingly doing as a country.
It's an absolute bullshit argument that ties into Jeb's argument. I'll explain why. Because what happens is, you'll say, no, now is the time. With this one time, unique in history, the guy that ran on getting Trump, now's the time. Now we put our foot down. And you just gave us how your interpretation would mean probably 80% of people that run for office violate this same law. Because they've got something that could be used on the campaign trail that they didn't put down as a campaign expenditure. So you would say, I am perfectly fine with people running on the promise of, I will take down this specific politician, and they will use a legal theory that's never been used. I'm totally fine with it because now is the time to put our foot down. And then here's what's going to happen.
I trust the courts more than you do, but yeah, sure, continue.
Okay, so then here's what's going to happen. They're not going to charge Hillary Clinton. They're not going to charge any of the Democrats. They're not going to charge any of the establishment Republicans. And you know that because you know these same institutions. I've heard you argue how they're covering up for the Bidens. So you know they're not going to do it. And then you know what you're going to say? You're going to go, well, shucks, I'll consider who to vote for next time. So you make this mountain out of Trump maybe paid Stormy Daniels. We need to put her foot down now, blah, 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 blah.
Not maybe, did, but sure, continue.
And the problem is the greater sin by far is the weaponized legal system that will not correct itself, that is going to continue to go after in unprecedented ways as people they feel is outside the establishment. And you look there and every time you and Jeb will go, well, this time we need to go after that guy outside the establishment. And then next time we'll get them. And there will be no next time.
I'm a big fan of it.
The rule of law, one of the most important factors of a rule of law is the equal application of the law. The rule of law ceases to exist when those that are operating for their own benefit, that have control over the rule of law, selectively target and enforce things in ways that they allow those that they agree with to get away with. There is no effective rule of law then. Yeah, and the idea that it should only be enforced on Trump and outsiders.
Sure.
Yeah, but you're saying Trump gets a pass.
Your alternative is just let it all go.
Let Trump gets a pass.
That's a worse alternative. So my issue is, sure.
You just said Trump gets a pass.
If you think the New York case is he's not guilty of that, there's still a chance that he's found not guilty of it. But what about the Georgia case and the federal cases?
Let's get into the other cases. Yes,
of course.
We're nitpicking on the weakest case, not one I find illegitimate.
I don't even think it's that weak.
Well, I think it's weakest. It's weaker than Georgia in the federal case because they are so strong.
Jeb, if you want to move those locations, that's fine. Rob, you kind of asked me like, am I willing to put up with that? And my answer is gonna be every single fucking time, yes.
So no punishment for the selective law enforcement. You just hope it
no. No, of course punishment.
Okay.
No, literally, Rob, really quick. I think what Connor's saying here is that yes, it seems like there was issues in the past where people were ended up like Hillary Clinton did end up.
No, there's issues now. I'll concede to issues now.
Exactly, but right now, if we also do this with Trump and just let him slide with this, where do we go as a country?
Okay, and that's where I got to Connor. It said that he will continue to not care when it's not then enforced on other people. I could prove it.
I do care. You've seen me scream that's from the fucking... Hold on. You have seen me scream from the fucking rooftops about Hunter Biden for hours, to the tunes of fucking DGG, basically saying like, you're a conspiracy theorist, you don't know what you're talking about. Meanwhile, whenever I push them on anything, they don't know any of the details of the case at all. And you're acting like I just want to give Democrats a fucking pass. I don't want to give Democrats a fucking pass, and I don't. Rhetorically, that's the limit of my power.
I would like to respond, Jeb. I would like to respond. Like, you do. You might use rhetoric to say you don't like it, but ultimately you're okay with it. And I can prove it. You want to know how? Didn't you say that it's not really Biden running, it's the deep state behind him? Okay, and didn't you just go work for a progressive PAC to help Democrats win the presidential election and downstream?
I would like to think that most of my work is on the presidential, but yeah.
Okay, and yet you're admitting that those deep state people at the presidential level, which you're admitting are deep state people that are selectively enforcing this, that apparently you have this huge problem with, and yet you're taking money to help them win.
Indeed.
Okay, because the beef that I have is not with let's just like run it down real quick, right? So I don't have a beef with the Central Intelligence Agency as a concept. I have no fucking problem with smart, intelligent linguists monitoring the communications of foreign adversaries and terrorist organizations in order to feed that information to the military branch so they can kill people. I got no fucking problems with that. Same thing with the FBI. I have no fucking problems with federal law enforcement hunting down some of the biggest fucking scumbags on the fucking planet. And by the way, I think this is like 80 to 90% of their operations. You guys talk about how like 30% or 40% or 50% is like political corruption and shit. I would say the fucking shit that I have beef with is probably maybe 5% at fucking most. So what I would like to do is go after these institutions where we're attacking the cancer, the 5%, not destroying the entire institution and starting from the fucking ground up. So when you're like, why do you fucking defend the deep state? And it's because, like, I don't want to destroy the deep state. I want to modify its function so it's actually in line with the aims of the republic.
Well, you could say all of that, but that's not mutually exclusive.
I do say all of that. That's what I said.
You could say that, but that's not mutually exclusive with what I'm accusing you of. You could say the FBI is important for all these reasons over here, but what you said specifically on this case is it's important even though this is a unique legal theory and the underlying crime isn't that serious, but it's still important
I would
to go
expect
after
the unique legal theory to be hashed out in court.
Well, right, but
Like
the idea
you and I are not the fucking the judge and jury from this fucking. Well, and here's the thing. So New York, right? I have skepticism of New York because basically they're a hyper litigious, gay GHEY pseudo fucking lefty communist fucking utopia, right? So I have my skepticism about New York, but what I would do is I would evaluate the case based off of its merits and what they state once it's being resolved. I wouldn't immediately go, oh, it's New York, therefore there's actually no justice here.
Well,
there is an injustice here.
There is
and
no
so
injustice.
far there's no injustice.
That's correct. There's no injustice.
There's no injustice. Okay, so I'm going to articulate this to you, and maybe you can articulate it back to me in a way where I agree with you that there's no injustice, okay? So the story, as I understand it, is that Trump was running for the election. He knew that, or he found out that Stormy Daniels was soliciting stories on the back channel with news orgs in order to sell the fact that she had an affair with Donald Trump while his wife was pregnant.
80% true. He didn't know. It came out in court today that Cohen and them knew, and they said that by the time they paid Stormy, they went to him, and he's like, oh, okay. But he didn't know it at the time. But go on.
It is a hush money payment, but the shit didn't actually fucking happen, dude. I mean, for real.
It may have. I don't care if it did or not.
What didn't happen?
Stormy has written a letter saying she never did sleep with Donald Trump. That's what he's referencing.
So she's just lying
blow
under oath?
She's lying to get money and to fucking play into the fucking narrative and to seize her fucking day,
so why would you pay off a whore you never fucked?
But that happens all.
Are
you really asking that? There are people that sign NDAs
no,
all the time.
The reason why I'm asking is because it begs belief.
I agree with you. I think he
that
probably
Trump
slept with her.
likely bangs hookers on the side.
But it's irrelevant to my criticism. But he's making the point that it hasn't even been proved that he slept with Stormy Daniels, and she's contradicted herself. She's also owed him legally hundreds of thousands of dollars that she lost in court, and she refuses to pay him. The head witness, Michael Cohen, has been told over and over again by judges that he's a liar, been held in contempt, or been held of committing perjury. Nonetheless, you can go on with the story. That's just again, I'm not making the argument.
Okay, yeah. Let's get through the story first. So Stormy Daniels is story shopping with different media outlets. The Trump campaign, I'll just amend my statement temporarily. But the Trump campaign finds out that Stormy Daniels is story shopping. As a result, they basically buy and squash the story. Cohen pays for it up front, and then Trump reimburses him out of campaign funds on the fucking back end.
I don't know if it was campaign funds. I'm unaware of that. I think it wasn't. I think he just paid him money.
Okay. If it wasn't, let's say that money came out of a personal fund and was therefore not declared on the campaign trail.
Right.
I would want that to be dismissed.
Okay, that's what I think.
Because if it's not campaign fund.
Hold on.
But the contention is that it is campaign fund.
No, the contention's that it. Go ahead, Jeb.
Let's get Jeb and EOD in here.
Yeah, for an illegitimate case, that just set off red flags for me. For something to be an illegitimate case, I would expect the level of certainty to be a lot higher than I think it wasn't campaign funds. That's literally what the trial is there to figure out. That shows it's a legitimate trial. If you're just like, I think it wasn't campaign funds, then let's let the trial play out and find out.
That's an absurd statement. That's an absurd statement.
Well, hold on, but I think what Rob is trying to say, I'm not trying to steal words out of your mouth or whatever, is that the person would be going after Trump regardless of what account the money came from.
And Connor proves that when he says in his opening statement that you can't use campaign funds, and now he's actually being charged because he didn't use campaign funds. That's what he's being charged.
You might need to say that again. So you're saying that the legal theory that the guy is presenting is the fact that the Stormy Daniels campaign was necessarily a part of the campaign and therefore should have been declared and paid through campaign.
That is correct. He is not being charged that he fraudulently used campaign funds to pay her. That's not why he's being charged. He's being charged because this was considered a campaign expenditure and he did not write it down as such. That's why he's being charged.
Hold on. So let me clarify my position then. Okay. If Trump paid Stormy Daniels with campaign funds and then marked it as something else, which I believe to be the case, I'm not saying 100% because I'd have to check the files again, then I think that investigation and prosecution is fine. If, however, he paid for it out of his private funds without declaring it, I don't give a solitary fuck. And I would hope that case would be dismissed.
Okay, this is what just the top of Braves AI says. According to the search results, there's evidence suggesting Donald Trump did not directly use campaign funds to pay Stormy Daniels. Instead, his personal lawyer,
is an alarm bell.
Okay, let me finish. Okay, instead, his personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, used his own funds to make the payment, which was later reimbursed by Trump. The payment was recorded as a, quote, monthly retainer for Cohen's legal services rather than a campaign expense.
Okay. Reimbursed from what monies?
Why would it matter?
Why would it matter if it came from the campaign or if it came from Trump? That's the entire contention.
But that's
Okay,
not
so really quick.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I think really quick what Rob is saying here, Connor, is basically that, yes, Cohen paid Stormy Daniels, but the campaign funds in general were to pay back Cohen for lawyer expenses. So, and that as a retainer or whatever they called it, right? But again, I agree with you, Jeb. You probably need to wait for the court case to really settle this out to see what comes out.
And also, Rob is based. He's Brave.
That's true about everything.
That's all I needed to know. Brave browser, he's based.
I am based, and so let me finish to what's said here. He is not being charged because he fraudulently used campaign funds. That's not the argument. The argument is the billing of this. Wherever the money came from, no one's charging him. They're not saying where the money came from is right or wrong. They're saying the fact that he wrote it down as a legal expense instead of a campaign expenditure.
Relatively speaking, concealed it. Yeah, I get it.
That is absurd. That is absurd that they're bringing this case. And furthermore, right, like, again, I can't stress this enough to get back to the relevant point, and then we can move on to every case. I don't care, right? Like, to get back to the relevant point, what you said about the CIA, the FBI has real jobs, that's not mutually exclusive to my criticism of you. My criticism of you is you seem to be saying, like, rule of law is really important, and therefore you can work for literally the deep state, in your words, because you're not advocating for Joe Biden. You didn't work for Joe Biden because he's just a corpse. It's the people behind Joe Biden, the very people themselves that you're admitting are putting their thumb on the scale. So let's say I agree with you and 80% of the work or 90% of the work they're doing good. Nonetheless, in this instance, the snize of the snowflake that they're accused of putting their thumb on the scale and going after Trump in these instances and allowing people like Hillary to get away with the crime, it's far bigger than what Trump's accused of. And yet, not only, you might say, I don't like that, but you're still working for them. You're still going, and so I don't buy the excuse, well, I think they're doing good things other ways. You could say the same thing about Trump then. You could say, well, I think that he's corrupt and terrible, but I think he did this good thing. He got Roe v. Wade overturned, so it's okay to take money from him.
Well, isn't that kind of what you're doing?
No.
I think.
Hold on, isn't that almost exactly what you're doing?
No,
You're
no,
saying,
no.
hey, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this, but I think this is based. Isn't that exactly what you're doing?
If Rampage
Rob,
lets
really
me
quick,
answer, I'll answer.
Really quick, let me ask you something, Rob. So I know that Connor's been getting a lot of shit for a lot of months now about this progressive victory and shit, which you keep bringing up. Which, whatever. I think what you're doing is
some of it's
deserved. To be honest with you, Connor, but
disgusting to me. It's a gross. It's a gross interpretation of
but
FEC
is
law.
this not a kind of a good thing where you have one of your guys that is like on the center right, leans more conservative? I know he calls himself centrist, but he definitely leans more conservatives, working in these organizations to try to kind of get the actual.
Isn't he on your
blocks,
team,
is
Rob?
what you're
Make it okay?
about.
Yeah.
No, it's
They,
dumb.
they,
get a lot of
they
kind
do
of
say some
ping
wild
back.
shit during the meetings sometimes, and I got to reel them back in.
It's not a good argument because, I mean, that would be the equivalent of being like, well, wouldn't it be good if you're a progressive liberal to send someone to, the Groiper that's running for Senate and help the Groiper win? Because wouldn't it be better that you be that?
Well,
right.
you're
No.
not Groiper,
Right.
but
Right.
yeah.
But no, the
I
point
guess
is,
so.
if you call
Yeah.
if we're talking about here and we're saying the importance of like even small things that don't seem like a big thing, that are unprecedented, to go after a president or a significant politician, even in unprecedented ways of extending the statute of limitations with these unique legal theories that have never been applied, still the small snowflake of what Trump did, it needs to go out in court. And you wouldn't then work for it, say, well, I do care about the double, because my entire criticism of Connor and Jebtan here is going to be that this is why outsiders, and it's not left and right. That's the irony of this. And Jeb at least knows.
I agree with you, by the way.
But Jeb, but that's what, and
Yeah,
Jeb,
I
I'm
agree
going to
with
call you, I'm going to impugn your integrity right here. I think Jeb more than Connor understands that he understands it's bullshit, but it's okay because it's Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's preventing more establishment type Republicans that he likes, like Nikki Haley. I don't think that's the case necessarily with Connor, because I think Connor would be willing to take sort of anti-establishment Republicans if he thought that they didn't have significant character flaws like Donald Trump. But Jeb knows exactly what he's. You don't think so?
Yeah, hold up. So here's the thing though. So I align with Jeb a little bit more than you think. So here's the thing is like the things that I want are corruptions of the deep state as it presently exists. So if the rhetoric around the deep state was the performance of the deep state, I would actually have very little problems with the United States. I think that though, a lot of these institutions, they basically get told one thing and then they do another, and they do that at the behest of some people. And so as a result, like, it gets all fucky. But that being said, as far as like corrupt versus non-corrupt functions of the federal government or the government in general, I'm at like a 95-5, like good to corrupt. And so as a result, I'm willing to pinch my nose a fucking little bit in order to make sure that the republic continues to perpetuate. Whereas you and EOD are basically saying it's half corrupt. The apple barrel is spoiled. It's rotten. It's degrading. It's falling apart. We need to throw this shit out and start from scratch. And I'm not even fucking close to that.
But that completely contradicts your stance on why it's important to go after Trump here. You allow the snowflake that becomes the avalanche. And the problem is the snowflake you're allowing is far more significant than Trump paying off a porn star that he allegedly slept with. What you're acknowledging is simultaneously, not only did the FBI and these organizations know that Hillary committed this exact same crime more significantly prior and chose to do nothing, but that they're continuing to cover up for these crimes. And despite that, you're saying, I'm willing to work for them, which is a unique difference.
So let's talk about Clinton real quick.
I don't want to harp too
quick.
much on the progressive victory Connor bullshit, because honestly, I think
No.
I mean, I love it.
Let's talk about the Clinton thing real quick, okay? So what I expect Clinton to do, because all of her flaws, like I think she's actually a baby-eating demon, but I think she is smart enough to insulate herself with rhetoric and legalese and lawyer shit, is that if you ask Hillary Clinton, did you personally pay for the Steele dossier? Something that you would need some kind of paper trail, some kind of money, some kind of verbal admission, some kind of audio recording, something like that. Clinton is the kind of person who's going to insulate herself behind enough lawyers and legalese, and I don't remember that you're never going to get a conviction out of that shit. Why are you shaking your head at that?
Because it wouldn't matter. Like it's such a poor excuse. So we're okay with the constant weaponization of the FBI and these institutions as long as the person that's benefiting from it is a better expert at legalese. Let's say I would concede that she would have.
This is literally a skill issue.
Okay, let's say that's true. Well, isn't there going to be someone that they're able to prove made these payments? We know that the payments weren't recorded, and we know the payments were made. So then someone in Clinton's orbit should go to jail. Same with the destruction of classified documents, but they never do.
Yes, actually,
never gonna happen, Connor.
But they never. That's my point, Connor.
Hold on. Before you say never gonna happen, there was somebody who did take a felony conviction for forging the documents during Crossfire Hurricane. There were other people who were indicted and they were dismissed out of the court. And there were people who basically took a professional black eye and as a result were pushed out of the establishment. So basically, like, you can say that this is a slap on the wrist compared to the crimes committed, and I will agree with you. However, saying that there was no punishment whatsoever is not accurate.